Hey guys, Rusty Miner coming at you with another knife science video. Today we're going to talk about blade shapes. I'm going to start off with probably the most simple blade shape, and that's just the straight back. So if you lay your knife flat on a table and it lays flat, that's going to be your straight back. Okay, and that's kind of where a lot of the knives vary from. This knife was going to have the belly, so when we're cutting, we're getting some belly with that. So it's a utilitarian type of a blade style and really simple. Moving on from that, we're talking about a trailing point. This happens to be called a Persian style blade, but a trailing point, and this is not the best example, but it's about the only one I have, is when the tip of the knife is the highest point of your knife there. What does that do? Well, that gives you that much more belly. Okay, so if you want to use this for cutting, you got all that extra cut with this. All right, so that's called the trailing point, and I think Uncle Henry does one pretty popular for a hunting knife. So moving on, we have the drop point. The drop point is to straight back, and what it does is it drops. So this is a very utilitarian knife, same type of thing. You get that where you can, when you're cutting, you can get full use of that belly. So this is probably what a lot of us think of when we think of knives, is the drop point, real versatile type knife. Moving on from there would be the clip point. And so rather than drop here, the clip point looks like, something just knocked off that part of the blade. A lot of people might call this a Bowie style. What you can do now is when you get here, you can cut. It actually turns the tip into, more of a cutting tool. When you got your drop point, you have to really kind of be way up there beyond what's going to be expected to get that thing. So that's the difference between a drop point and a clip point. We go from there, we're taking a look at a Wharncliffe. Now, Wharncliffe is actually defined by a straight bottom edge here, and I don't know if I have, yeah, I got one I'll bring out here. But that's the same thing, as you can use this to cut with the tip. So it's a precision type, very traditional. This is a nice style. A lot of people like the Wharncliffes. Just, I think they look different. They work well. So if we bring this one out, oh, I should probably tell you guys both, with the Wharncliffe, and I'll bring both these Wharncliffes out, what they can do is they also taper that tip. So you get a nice thin. So what I mean when I say taper, you can see how it starts to come together at the tip, and the idea being, get a really thin. So they're going to have, traditionally they're going to have a weaker tip, where your drop point doesn't quite get that thin, So little variation, in my opinion, is, well, I'm going to call this a Hawkbill. You guys can see the curve in there. And so what we're looking at now is we don't really have that belly. We got a curve, but we got a nice, if you want to draw cut with this thing. So it's very similar to the Wharncliffe, but it has, if you will, a built-in recurve on there. So mostly for kind of a draw cut. All right, now we're going to move into some knives that are going to be different. This is a spear point. Now what a spear point's going to do, this one is, it looks like a spear, okay? And what they do is they bring this blade stock right out to here, and then they start to bring it together. But right on this point, you basically have 4 grinds coming together. You know, you got your swedge that's being ground down here, and you got your primary grind, or your bevel, that's being ground up to here, and then this blade stock is ground, and so they all converge at the point. And that's going to give this the ability to stab. So this is for stabbing more so. I mean, you can still do like the Wharncliffe, and it has a bit of a, you know, belly type thing, but it's for stronger tip reinforcement. I'll bring out another one that's very similar, but looks different. So what they did here, your blade stock, you know, they brought the swedge and they brought it down, but you guys don't know if you can see that there. It's actually bringing the blade stock out quite a ways, all the way to the tip. Again, if you want, this one's not as pointy, but you do have a stronger tip that way. So that's what your spear points are good for. Moving on, one of my favorites, I didn't think so it would be when I first started, is the Tanto blade. And the Tanto blade is also very stabby. It's one of the primary uses. This particular one, they bring kind of the blade stock all the way out to here, and then they start to taper it like your spear point. So when you're looking at this, and then also, as far as I'm concerned, you get something that not a lot of knives offer, and that's the ability to, you know, cut this way. And they offer what we're going to call that secondary point. So you can cut this way, and you can cut with the secondary point, and you can cut with the tip. This one is known as an Americanized Tanto, and that's going to be this transition point when it goes straight up to the point. So we're going to call that an Americanized Tanto. And finally, we're going to bring in a Japanese Tanto. And the difference now is when you come to this transition point to this point, it's more rounded. That's your traditional Japanese style swords. You know, a samurai sword has a Tanto tip, and that's for when you poke, it's got all this metal coming to a point here. So it's for penetration is what that is. But again, you know, you can make cuts using this secondary edge. This particular one has a recurve, which when we talk about that secondary point right there, and then of course you can use the tip to cut. So that is a Japanese style Tanto blade. Alright guys, thanks for sticking around.